By the next day, I really noticed that all the incoming photos kind of had a real sameness to them. They didn't have a lot of depth to document the impact this would have on the long term kind of the community. So I was, as the art director for Texas Magazine, I was thinking ahead to what we would want to see at a later point to put this all in perspective. You know, what visual record do we want to capture now for a long-term understanding of the event, more than just the quick, this piece of fragment here or there. I had worked with, Tammy had shown me a project she had done, which is now called Fruit of the Orchard, with that toxic waste in Winona, Texas. And I had run a set of her photos and, along with a reporter's story about that in Texas Monthly. So I was very familiar with her work with Holga cameras and how good she was at capturing portraits of people that had kind of a deeper level. She really understands the people of East Texas in ways that the visiting media did not. I think Rufus also has that advantage of being someone who is there and kind of understands the people. All these media photographers came rushing in, and they didn't have really a sense of the community there. So I knew Tammy could take a different approach, and so I gave her a call and asked if she would like to do something for us other than spot news, some kind of a series of portraits of the people who were impacted by the event. I suggested that she tape record their thoughts and recollections while it was fresh in their minds. I knew I could never get a reporter to go around with her because they were all too busy catching the spot news. So it was an idea of just using a tape recorder to get in the way people thought about it in their own words. So she did that, and it really worked out well. About 3.5 months later, we published her series of portraits with transcribed and edited copy blocks. Our issue was titled "The Day Columbia Fell to Earth," and inside the headline "Debris and Dignity." And it appeared on May 25th, 2003, with really all the material she had gathered. And I thought it worked out quite well. I was really happy with the project. So, Amy?
Well, thank you, Catherine. I would thank you for telling me to take the tape recorder, because now here I am doing more audio. You kind of started something there. Yeah, on February 1st, 2003, I was laying in bed, and I heard the booms, and it rattled my window, and I remember going outside, and I could smell some fuel. I don't know if it was imagined, but I thought I smelled fuel outside, and I wanted to go down there quickly. I didn't. I stayed back. But then Catherine called me later that day, and she asked me to go down there and photograph the debris. So I started doing that. Well, like she said, it's kind of mundane. And then she planted the seed of photographing the people and taking the tape recorder. And that I just fell in love with that complete idea. And also taking the Holga camera down. The people really had stories to tell. They were all very passionate about it. It was a very sad day and a sad time, but yet again, the excitement from all the media had everybody's energy level was up. What was interesting to me, is in December of 2002, I had been photographing at the Commercial Bank of Texas the employees as a commercial client, so I already knew them. And so once I went in there, they kind of took me under their wing and pointed me in directions of other people, which I thought was very nice of them. And they got me some really interesting people to talk to, like Gerald Mora, who thought we were under nuclear attack. He was a 74-year-old man, and he said he dove into the bushes. And whenever I went to go visit with him and record a statement, he said, "Do you want me to show you what I did?" I said, "Sure." So I got a picture of him doing that. There was one other thing that a lot of the people told me, since I sounded just like them, my accent is the same as the East Texans. They said, some of these reporters, I don't think they're taking us very seriously. And so I think that's why Catherine ended up calling it Debris and Dignity, because I was trying to, give them some dignity in some way. Them just being able to tell it as an East Texan, because I was an East Texan too, and so I was really thankful that Catherine had asked me to do that, and I kept photographing there even after she ran the story. I've got like probably 75 images that are good. I mean, there's a lot more negative than that, and I have audio from like 25 different people that still needs to be compiled. But and in this show, I have 16 images that are up for the show, and there will be audio going through as well. But anyway, I guess that's all I'll talk about. Rufus Lovett, are you with us?
Yes. I was taking off that Saturday morning to a place I photograph often, and I always have the radio on, and it's rarely music, it's usually talk. And so I was listening to the news and found out what had occurred, because I was totally unaware. And right after I heard that news and being astounded just going down the road, Scott Danich, the creative director of Texas Monthly at that time, gave me a call on my cell, and I told him, yeah, I just heard about it. He says, well, we want you in Nacogdoches. So I just did an about face. Had to go back to Longview, pick up the rest of my gear, because I didn't know what I would be doing exactly until I got there. So I went all the way back to Longview, then scurried down to Nacogdoches. The media had already arrived for the most part. Of course, by then it was probably early to mid-afternoon. So I just began photographing that in the beginning, because that was the first thing I did. I went right down to the bank where that first big piece of debris was found in the parking lot. Made some photographs around there and a few photographs of the media to try to get a sense for what was occurring in this little small East Texas town. Gary Borders, the publisher for the Daily Sentinel in Nacogdoches, had been called to write the story for this issue of Texas Monthly. And I've known Gary for a number of years. He and I have worked together on other projects. So I was delighted and eventually made my way over to the newspaper. And then they pointed me in a number of interesting directions to find debris that had fallen in people's backyards and people's hayfields and that sort of thing. And so when I arrived at all these places, it was a beautiful opportunity to photograph the debris, of course, unrecognizable debris, yet, or to the layman anyway, in order to help show the scale of this, just to be somewhat visually literate about this. I wanted people in the photographs, of course. And so I did a series of little portraits of people on their property and the debris that was found and where it was found and that sort of thing. That's the majority of the photographs anyway, not all of them. But I found that kind of to be the direction I would take for that photo essay. And so it kind of helped create a sense of scale for the person looking at the photograph, because some of the debris was quite small, some was rather large. And large spheres and that sort of thing. So there was this one fellow, I got to tell you, and of course, as tragic as it was, there was a little bit of humor from time to time, just because it's East Texas. It's big events happening in East Texas, and it became somewhat of like you said, Tammy, the excitement level was raised quite high there in that community. There was this one fellow walking along, and he had in his hands these little pieces of debris. Just hand-sized debris. He and his son were walking along picking things up. And I found him on the road, and I saw him from a distance picking these objects up, and I thought, okay, this guy's finding stuff. And so I went and to talk to him about it, and he had picked up this little piece of charred debris, and he was holding it. And I said, I'm not sure that you're supposed to be touching that, because it was all over the news not to touch the debris, leave it where it is, it could be hazardous. And plus, they need to be able to locate it and put things back together, right, for investigative purposes. And but yet he had this in his hand, and he was walking home with it. And I said, I'm not sure that you're supposed to handle that stuff. He says, well, what for? I think it's already broke. And so it's that kind of little East Texas thing, humor that kind of pops out of these whole tragic events. It's really kind of bizarre.